paper. You've just joined a great group of people who are trying to rise above the noise, who are trying to show up for others, who are trying to live lives of hope, belonging, meaning, and purpose. That's who we are here, and thank you so much for joining us. We always try to have guests on here that lift us up, that raise us up, that make us think, that get us going, and that give us hope. I think it's super important for all of us now to have hope in our larger community, hope in all of us, and to define, I think, our narrative about who we are. There's a big us out there that has a lot more in common than what divides us. So I try to use this space to push on that narrative. There's more that we have in common. Us is much bigger than we're being told by contemporary media, and that's what this space is used for, to bring us together, to lift us above the noise, to help us rise up, and to give you examples of people who are doing just that. So I'm going to find Shelly, because she's just Mindful Skate Girl is her handle. And Shelly and I met through social media, and I'm a big fan of her pandemic. There she is.
Hi.
There you are, my wonderful, wonderful woman. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here. It's absolutely
mind-blowing. Can I hear you now?
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Wonderful. I'm so excited, Shelly, to see you. First of all, let me begin by congratulating you. Shelly and I met through social media, on social media, during COVID, when she kind of came up out of the blue to announce this pandemic of love. She wanted to make a difference. She stepped up and she started connecting people who had resources with those who didn't. And I'm not quite sure how I found out about her, but we've been kind of in each other's lives since then. And she's just written this incredible book that I'm so happy for her. It says, "Sit Down to Rise Up, How Radical Self-Care Can Change the World." This is her book, and it's all about showing up, taking care of yourself, taking care of others. And I'm going to read you the first line that she has. And she says, "I want to share the secret of life with you. It took me close to 40 years to discover it, and it's probably not what you think. It has nothing to do with owning the right things or achieving certain goals or having a certain pedigree. It has nothing to do with loving people the right way or even achieving happiness. The secret to life is this: show up. Show up for yourself, for others. Show up physically to create sacred spaces. Show up consistently. Show up when others don't show up. Show up in a way that makes every person feel held. Show up in a way that makes you feel held by others." And that is in the first paragraph what this woman's life is about, what this book's about, and what I'm hoping we all can be about, because that's what's going to make our country whole again. It's what's going to make our country whole again. So, Shelly, congratulations.
Thank you
Are
so
you
much.
so excited? You have a blurb on here from President Biden on the top. I mean, hello.
Yeah, it was really an incredible surprise when he and Dr. Biden called to thank me for the work that I was doing. It was like on a Sunday morning from an unidentified number, and I normally don't pick those up. And I was blown away when he said, "Shelly, this is Joe." And I was like, "Joe who?" Like, who could possibly be calling me? And he said, "This is Joe Biden." And I said, "Really? Like, it's the real Joe Biden?" And then I heard Dr. Biden in the background, and she said, "We're so proud of the work that you're doing." And it was so incredibly validating, and just, it gave me so much fuel to continue to do the work. Similar to really early on, Maria, I have to share with you that, you were really one of the very first people who recognized what we were trying to do as a community. It started on such a small level, really, such a modest level in South Florida. And you were one of the first people. The Sunday paper named me an architect of change. And that was so incredibly exciting to me. This was like a week into starting the organization. And so that gave me fuel. I said, there's something here. People are latching onto this. people see that there's a way to connect at a time of disconnection, and that we can connect at a point of empathy and a point of just humanity, like basic
Yeah.
humanity that we all have. And I found that to be incredibly exciting, that we could continue to expand that.
Well, what's so amazing is that, you know, it's your work. You have the President of the United States calls you to thank you for showing up for your fellow man and woman, right? That's that's what can happen when you show up. I'm not saying that every single person's going to get a call from the President of the United States, but if you step up, step out, you don't even know what's out there until you do, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
stepped up and said, I'm going to start this pandemic of love. I'm just going to see, you made 2 lists. What do you need? What do you have? And I'll connect people. And then you lit a spark.
Yeah, exactly. I think the beautiful thing about the just the infrastructure of Pandemic of Love is that it's not automated. And I just want to remind people that we're not a nonprofit. We're a nonprofit disruptor, which I'm incredibly proud of. And it's not a knock on nonprofits. We actually help to amplify a lot of times the missions of nonprofits that sometimes, you know, it takes them a while to like pivot. So we can be that, be there at the beginning part before they do. But, you know, the beautiful part about Pandemic of Love is that people have to connect. It's not just like this transactional thing. There is no middleman. There's no organization or bank account where you donate to something and then something goes out to somebody else. In order for 2 people to connect, they have to have a conversation and they have to feel seen and heard. And oftentimes it happens in both directions. So the donor winds up feeling uplifted, you know, as just as much as the individual that was in need that got their phone bill paid or their, you know, help with their rent or groceries. You know, and it's just an incredible way for us to walk a mile in somebody's shoes and put on a different lens, you know?
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I read it when I was reading different articles, and it might even have been because we're going to have a piece with Shelly in the Sunday paper this Sunday. But you talked about how somebody came to volunteer for the Pandemic of Love, and they were connected with another woman who needed some things. And then the volunteer found out that this woman was a Trump voter.
Yeah.
And she came to you and said, you know, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be put with a Trump voter. And talk about that, because I thought that's such a great example for all of us in this time of great division and polarization about reaching across what we think
Yeah.
is something that we can't reach across. Talk about that a little bit, Shelly.
Yeah, so I include the original letter from Eileen, who is a self-proclaimed, and this is how she describes herself in the letter. She says, I'm a liberal hippie Jew from New York, who's a social worker that's worked for, you know, on the front lines of gay rights, LGBTQ rights, but this was like in the early 80s. So it was like the gay pride and gay right movement. And she was really offended. She was incredibly offended that we had the audacity as an organization to connect her to a woman in Mobile, Alabama, that not only voted for Trump, but that also, you know, in her estimation was an anti-Semite and, you know, had a Confederate flag sticker, which I mean, in one conversation, this woman like managed to ask Christine, the person we connected her with, a myriad of, you know, invasive questions. And she wound up, you know, just taking a pause and telling her, I don't know if I can help you. I'll call you back. She wrote us this long letter. I personally picked up the phone to call her. And I listened to her, and I listened to her, you know, frustration and her concerns. And after she finished, I said, I'm hearing your concerns. I understand what you're saying, but let's just pause for a minute. I want you to think about and contemplate for a second, what would happen if you don't help this woman? If you don't help this woman, you are possibly going to confirm everything she thinks about a New York liberal hippie Jew from, you know, like a place that she's never been, what you have, the way you describe yourself. She may already have preconceived notions because maybe she's never met somebody like you. Maybe she's never traveled outside of Alabama or that Floribama line. You know, maybe she's never had the opportunity to actually interact with somebody who is going to speak to her on a completely different level or topics.
Yeah, right.
And it just caused her to have pause. And she said she would think about it. I didn't hear from her, Maria, for months. And then a month before the election in November, I get this beautiful letter from her that explains that she actually not only helped Christine, but that, dare we say it, they're friends now, and that she has been transacting with her for months and making sure that her kids have what to eat by sending her a Walmart gift card every 2 weeks. And this is the best part. She says, I started to inquire about her children, and I found out that her daughter, who's 10 years old, loves to read. So I asked if I could send her books. And she said, and I started to send her books like The Diary of Anne Frank and all these books that I knew her mother wasn't necessarily going to buy for her, or that may not be available to her in her school. And I just wanted to expand her world, because I already knew that I was able to expand Christine's, but Christine also expanded my world.
I love that, because it's so important for all of us to take note of this story. I thought it was so powerful, because we all have judgments about the other. We all have judgments. We see a D and R in front of someone's name, and right away we jump in to they're this, this, and this, and we don't know them. We don't know where they come from. And that example is so beautiful, because each person had to take a step across the divide. Each person had to take a step into the unknown. And what they found out was that there was a lot that they had in common, right? That there was their humanity, that they both were, people who had love in them that they could show to the other. And that's the thing that's going to change our world. That's my hope. That is my hope.
Yeah, no, proximity. People ask me, what's the one thing that's going to change the world? And I say proximity. We have to be willing to be in proximate spaces, because that allows us to have very difficult conversations, but more importantly, connect on human levels, on empathy, have our mirror neurons start to fire, because we can connect on like even one thing. And that one thing can just completely extrapolate out and yield just real conversations, which we don't have anymore.
I love that. And Shelly's book here is about, kind of, as I said, she writes in the beginning about showing up, and I read that part. But you also talk about radical self-care can change the world. So I want you to just say a minute about that, because self-care, people have so many different connotations about what self-care is. And why do you think self-care as a concept is what's going to change the world?
Well, I'll start with this. I'll start by saying that the best version of the world starts with the best version of us.
Okay,
so
pause,
that's
pause. And just repeat that. The best version of the world starts with the best version of us.
Correct.
Okay, so that means the best version of ourselves in our heart, in our minds, the way we go out into the world.
Yes. Well, and in Eastern languages, heart and mind is the same word. And so there is no differentiation between the two. So really it's both. It's the full embodiment of who we are, not just in this body, but everything that sort of radiates outside of ourselves, right? The way we show up for ourselves, the way we show up for our immediate circles of influence, our family, our community, the people that we interact with, and then the way that we show up for the world, right? In a movement sense. And so the book itself is actually divided into 3 parts: the me, which is the journey, the inner journey, the we, and the us. And it sort of this is a through line. Self-care is the through line. So defining self-care, is really important, because I feel like in many ways, self-care has been hijacked by the industrial wellness complex that we're living in, like by beauty brands and healthcare brands and green juices and all of these things. And, self-care is not a mud mask and a bath bomb.
What is it?
Right. What it is it's a reclamation of the right to self-preservation and the ability to move beyond the need to survive, because many of our communities are still in that survival mode, and thrive. And the only way that we can do that and achieve true self-care is if we move from the idea, move into the notion that it is communal, that it must be communal, and that we've got to get back to the idea that we can, through community, hold each other accountable. We can remove obstacles for each other, and then eventually build out new systems.
So help me here, because I know, like, had my mother been alive when the self-care movement kind of gained traction, she would have looked at me like, I don't believe in self-care. What are you talking about? That sounds selfish. That sounds, kind of what people sit around and care. There's a whole world out there to heal. There's a world out there to talk to me about self-care. Why is she wrong? She have been wrong.
Well, I think that your mother, and I wish I would have known your mother, right? I think that your mother absolutely believed in community, right? Your mother believed in community. She understood what it meant to help one another and to help thy neighbor and to love thy neighbor. And so I think that my definition of self-care is actually something that your mother could latch onto, because she could understand that she others, she could heal herself. Your mother inherently understood that.
So that's a really interesting take on self-care. As you said, you think the whole kind of self-care movement has been hijacked into mud masks and tubs, and your different take on these two words. And you're saying that we have to first care for the self to get to the larger we, to get to the larger us.
Yes. Correct.
That there is we or us.
I'm sorry, I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or your Wi-Fi. This is the problem with IG.
Is without caring for ourselves, we can't get to the larger community.
Correct. But also, I think, Maria, we need to recognize that many people in our society, and certainly Pandemic of Love was able to shine a light on that, are not able to take care of themselves in a full way. Even I'm a single mother, for example, who's working a full-time job, and then I'm expected on top of that to be able to exercise and to meditate and time to read and connect with my friends and with my family. Unless I'm leaning on other people who can help me by address time that I have, right? I may have other forms of poverty too. If my community can help address time poverty, we can sort of get back to the notion that I like to say that my grandparents used to talk to me about, and most likely your parents and grandparents talked to you about, this beautiful time called back in the day. Back in the day when we all knew our neighbors and we took care of each other and we showed up for each other. And that's this hearkening, this yearning that the book is trying to get to. How do we get back to back in the day?
I love that, because you write it in the book about asking people for what you needed and saying, I need help. And that's so often the hard thing, the hard first step that we all have to take.
Yeah.
Is like, I need help. I need someone to help me raise my kid. I need someone to help me with my food. And then Pandemic of Love really answered people who stepped out and said, I need help. I need help to pay for my phone bill. I need help to pay for my groceries. So we're coming up, Shelly, on the holiday season. This book is out. How can people support you now if people need help at Thanksgiving or at the holidays? What do they do to join you?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that people can do. Obviously, first, people can buy the book. If they go, they go on Amazon right now, the book is showing as sold out, like as it's out of stock. So I would tell you to go on to bookshop.org and support your local bookstore. And when they get it back in stock, they will ship it to you. So bookshop.org is still allowing you to do that. I do also want to say that my handle is Mindful Skater Girl, which people often ask me about. And skateboarding is one of my passions. It's really just a fun self-care. It's a pursuit of self-care. And a friend of mine who's an incredible artist named Ryan Cronin, and if you go to artistryancronin.com, on the top you could see ways that you can actually he created this really cool print. This is just a postcard of it, and it says me, we, and us. And so there's all this really cool merchandise, and the proceeds are going to help build a skate park in his community.
Oh, that's great.
So cool. So it's really incredible. So definitely go and check that out. And what I will say also is Pandemic of Love is always looking for volunteers. We're at the point now where we've matched over 2 million people. We're at the $60 million mark. We're in 16 countries, but we run on human power. We run on grassroots volunteers. Nobody gets paid. There is no overheads. There are no fees. We're just, to say it in Yiddish, as my mother would say it, we're making shidduch.
I love that. So how do people get involved if they want to? They're saying, like, I've got some time and this is a form of my self-care. I want to help somebody else.
Yeah.
What do they do?
Go to Pandemic.
Buy the book. We're going to buy the book. We're going to help with the skate park. But how do they help with that connection?
Go to pandemicoflove.com, and it's so simple. There are 3 links: give help, get help, and volunteer. That's it. Super simple.
Give help, get help, and volunteer. So all of us can fit into one of those categories.
Correct.
Give help, get help, and volunteer. And then buy this book. That's exciting. The book is sold out, right?
Totally. It's amazing. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank Shelly for coming on here today. Once again, we're going to put her up in the Sunday paper. We're going to link to this conversation. We have an original Q&A with her. Go out and support her book, Sit Down to Rise Up, How Radical Self-Care Can Change the World. As I said, there's a blurb from the president on here. There's a foreword from Chelsea Handler. There's all kinds of great blurbs on the back from all kinds of people from all walks of life who have, including me, but who have watched Shelly really step up, show up, take care of herself, and think about our larger we and our larger us. And Shelly, I want to stay in connection with you. You are an architect of change. You are a light. You are moving humanity forward. And I just want to applaud you for that. I'm really so inspired by you. I really am. And one day when we meet in person, you'll teach me how to get on a skateboard.
Yes, I will take responsibility for making sure that you come out in one piece. Definitely.
That I don't fall and break my hip or something.
And you'll score points with the grandkids as they continue to come. So don't worry.
Well, you've scored points with me, and I hope everybody goes out to get her book, supports her movement. Remember, pandemicoflove.com. What do you need? What can you give? And how can you volunteer? And I love that it's powered by human capital, because that's the best kind of capital.
It is.
So God bless you and so much. And I'm going to think about you in my meditation. She said we didn't get into all of her meditation, but it's covered in our Sunday paper piece this Sunday. God bless you, Shelly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take good care.